Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. Today we are on with Tim, Mike, and JJ of the Athletic Trainers in the Physician Practice Society, current president, past president, and vice president, respectively. And this is the first part of a couple-part series leading up to their annual conference in February in Louisville, Kentucky. This one really covers the history and the evolution of the ATPPS, and being someone who works in this setting, I found it fascinating, everything that went into it, the growth and success they've had, and really their focus and what they're trying to do to help athletic trainers in this setting, and really extending beyond that and finding ways to help just advance the profession overall. It was really an insightful discussion and one I really enjoyed, and looking forward to the ones that follow up here in the next couple of weeks. So please stay tuned for those. We really think it's valuable. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Please give them a look as you're looking for any recovery product. Your tape, braces, always affordable, always advancing. We really, truly appreciate their support. And as always, a short message from our parent company, Clinically Pressed, and then the episode.
Check out the Clinically Pressed Company shop for free resources on performance, nutrition, recovery, and sample training blocks. These resources can be great for athletic trainers who just haven't had the time to put them together for themselves. All are free, no payment information required. Check them out at clinicallypressed.org/shop. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back.
Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. This is going to be the first of a couple episodes talking and focusing about the athletic trainers in the Physician Practice Society. This is all kind of leading up to their annual meeting in February in Kentucky. Really, this is an interesting one for me, as I've been in the physician's setting for 5 or 6-ish years now. So to hear kind of everything on the background of how this society got started, the need that was addressed, and just the evolution that it's had so far, personally looking forward to this a lot. But before we kind of start getting into that history, we're just going to have our guest introduce himself. And Tim, we'll start with you.
Sure. My name is Tim.nicolello. I'm currently the president of ATPPS. I'm based out of Boise, Idaho, and I've been in AT for 15 plus years. I spent majority of my career in the Physician Practice Society, where I did a residency at St. Luke's, and worked with different providers within the organization, went into management, service line leadership, and then have kind of gone on to the corporate side of healthcare in the last few months. So been able to be a part of the creation and the founding board for the society, and really excited about where we've come from and where we're going.
Awesome. Mike?
I'm Mike Doyle. I'm currently the past president of ATPPS. My current role is vice president of orthopedic services. I've been certified for a long time for that. So I started working in a physician practice at the around 1999, 2000. Back in the early 2000s, I went back to get my MBA to work more in administration. I did my master's paper that was sent out and utilized on increasing the throughput in a clinic by utilization of athletic trainers. So I wrote that, and that was published in 2005. So quite a while ago, and that's a lot of it. How I got started in the profession is just showing physicians how we can improve throughput in their clinics and improve patient care.
And JJ?
Yeah, I'm jj.wetherington. I am also in Boise, Idaho. I was a little later into the physician practice. I worked at a collegiate setting for four years before attending the St. Luke's athletic training residency, the same one that Tim did, a couple of years after Tim in 2013. I've been in the physician practice setting since then, at a couple different locations, but currently I'm back at St. Luke's here in Boise, Idaho. I work full time in the clinic, with an orthopedic surgeon specializing in shoulders. I also help run our athletic training residency program now. And, I've done a lot of work over the years with the Katie and the BOC around specialty practice and athletic training residencies, in a number of capacities, and was lucky to be a part of the original founding board for ATPPS and have served as vice president since the beginning. And we're changing leadership structure, so I'll be the only vice president. I have that distinction.
Well, there you go. You got to make your mark on history somehow.
Yeah, there you go.
So whoever would like to take this, what was the initial, collaboration collection of people that started throwing around the idea of, hey, let's make a standalone society for this specific practice setting for athletic trainers? When did it start? When did it kind of become official? However you guys want to break that down.
So I'll start with that. This was, probably about 2015, 16, is when we started talking about this quite a bit. Um, from it, like JJ said, he was part of this, involved JJ, and spent a brief amount of time in Michigan, where our paths crossed, there in this setting also. Um, uh, we had Forrest Pekka, Mark Larson, Paul Bruning, um, Kevin Herod, Jen Catino, now Jason Muckow. I know I'm going to miss some people, but there were several of us. We had talked with Marge Album too, just on ideas, just trying to get things out because we knew there was educational content was the main thing that we were going around. We'd go to conferences, there'd be a session or two, but it went around on we wanted to have full sessions. We had the pre-conference at the NATA, but then it basically became, almost a freestanding the way the NATA structured it, and then restructured right around 2016, 17, caused us to say, hey, we just need to move forward with this idea. So we wanted to make sure we had strong content, all focused on the physician practice setting, not on other areas of athletic training domain, and just take it from there. So that's kind of how it grew. So 2016 is when we actually incorporated. Originally I was the treasurer. So the ATPPS was founded on my membership and registration check that I wrote to the organization to open up the bank account. There's all sorts of really interesting financial disclosures you have to do when you're opening up a 401c3 501c3 when you're trying to open up a nonprofit, because they think it's a money laundering scheme, and apparently that people take advantage of this. And
So you didn't do the EZ form?
no.
No, we didn't either for ours after I had read up on it for very much those same reasons.
Yeah, so it's pretty challenging, but yeah, we started off there. We took a risk, but we knew there was interest. We knew there was interest and demand for it. So that's how we started in fall of 2016 when we became incorporated, to get ready for 2017. And I'll hand it over to JJ.
I think that just to correct it, Mike, it was 2017, and we had our first conference in 18. So one
Okay.
year difference on the paper. There you go.
So you
Yeah,
can, yeah.
the conversations were a very long time coming. I think, we were all sitting around there. It was a small group at the time, and we all kind of knew each other, but we all kind of had been getting more and more questions from a larger group of people. And we'd go to conferences and it'd be all of us talking, but we were each coming up with having new issues. And it mainly came out of a way of educating ourselves, but also learning how to solve the problems and then advocate for ourselves. And it was really interesting to see certain issues come across the country, like, hey, I'm dealing with this issue. Oh, I dealt with that 6 months ago. And it would have been, we kind of talked, hey, it would have been nice had I known that was coming. And so we started using it as a collaborative tool. And really, as we started to grow and do more of the stuff, especially at the NATA conferences, um, having that standalone meeting was really valuable for all of us to connect and to see some of these issues. We kind of started saying, hey, it'd be great if we did this a little bit more often. And we were working with the NATA at the time trying to do that. And unfortunately, things just didn't work out that way. And we kind of said, hey, there's a big enough population of people that need this information. We're all kind of getting hammered from all sides. Let's work on trying to find one way to get all this information consolidated to one area, and that's kind of what the whole process started. We had that conversation over a number of years, over a number of drinks, and I finally made the step. I kind of remember we all sat in a room in Baltimore, if I remember right, and there were probably 40 or 45 of us at the time, and that was a much bigger group of people than we thought were going to show up when we said, hey, is this something we need to do? And that was kind of the initial steps of starting that. And that, as Mike said, it was kind of, yeah, Paul, Jason, Tim was there. Joe Green was another one that was there. Yeah, it was a lot of the people that we all knew that really helped us kind of decide that we should do this.
I think it was 16 and 17 because wasn't it Baltimore and Houston too?
Yeah, Houston too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I wasn't at Baltimore, but I was definitely there in Houston for sure.
Yeah, I remember both of them. Baltimore, I just vividly remember that there was a whole nother conversation that we had that led up to that. This is the reason I remember Baltimore, around specialty practice. So that was that whole conglomeration of things kind of all happened at the same time.
Yeah, and those beer and napkin meetings can be some of the more productive ones.
Mike's the best at
I
those.
still have I still have a notebook of the notes I took at the Houston call it cocktail meeting to go over stuff of like,
Mhm.
what could this be? I still have it like in my desk here somewhere. And so, I think knowledge sharing is the base of all of this. We're all
Mhm.
going through state specific and even more so institution specific barriers at times of like, hey, how do you do this? What allows you to do this? Who's supporting you in trying to work within the scope of your state? And although there's different scopes and different institutions, have different policies on how you do things, there's still a lot of common denominators in how people got things done. And so it went from a matter of, okay, what are you doing in Missouri at Mercy? Jason Muckow was one of our board members, so that we can figure out this in Boise at St. Luke's, big health systems, both on similar EMRs. Like, you're doing it, how can we do it? And a lot of it is relationship building with not only within like our professional network, but then your institutional network. Getting to know your physicians, getting to know your administration, getting to know the people above orthopedics within your same organization who kind of make these decisions, whether it's nursing leadership or other councils that have been set up, because a lot of it is educating them, which, ATs are no stranger to have to educate somebody on what we do. And so it's a similar conversation, but you have to tailor it to how does it impact your institution, your clinic, your job, and the people around you, right? Our whole goal of coming in is to help, to add to the team. Our goal has never been to, hey, don't hire them, hire us. No, just bring us in, let us be a part of this, and we can make the business sense on this. Let's show it. We've even done some studies across different programs like St. Luke's and Emory, within residencies of like, hey, how do you show kind of the business side of bringing on an AT, not just residency, but we use the residency as that platform because research was part of the requirements. And so you look at not only physician satisfaction with hiring an AT, patient satisfaction, how many patients were you able to see either within a daily basis or a weekly basis, and then kind of extrapolate like what does that business sense look like on maybe a year scale. So if you're able to bring in a certain amount of new patients because you have this extra staff person and the physician was able to see these many more patients in a week, you can extrapolate kind of what that value is by just adding on, not necessarily removing or replacing anybody.
So you brought up a lot of things and was going to ultimately lead into my next question. You're starting around the 16, 17 time, 40, 45 people interested. Let's do this. You offer so many things on your website as I was, again, just perusing it before we got on to the recording. Where did you start? How did that look like with membership and growing that? Saw you just hit 700 members, um, just very recently, which is
Yeah.
awesome. I don't know how many ATs actually work in the setting, if that's a known number or not, but 700 is still a great big number
Yeah.
for not a gigantic profession. And so where did you find, the ways to provide that value early, and then how did you build on that to continue to demonstrate that and grow membership?
I think a lot of it is what do we need? What do we need as far as value just to create this organization? What do we as members, not board members, need, as a part of this organization to get? And so our first conference was in 2018 here in Boise, and we had, I think, just about 70 people, here in person. And we didn't start advertising the conference until November, I think, of 17. So we only had like 3 months worth of like, we're going to put this on. And it went really well, and we were able to keep costs low. So we did it again in 2019 in Boise, but we more than doubled. About 150 people were in attendance for that one, and good thing we outgrew Boise. And so although it was a cost-effective space, we outgrown the space itself. And so then it took us to February of 2020 before the pandemic officially like took over. We got in Columbia, South Carolina, and had 225 people in person at the conference. We were pretty lucky the timing wise for that to go off. And for 21 and 22, we chose to go virtual. 21 was kind of a no-brainer. 22 was, hey, it could go one way or the other, but more for stability and kind of making sure that we keep ourselves in a stable situation for an organization. We chose to stay virtual again in 22. And so, we offered the virtual conference, which was, for what virtual conferences became, it was really good. We still had, vendor and industry supports like you would have an in-person conference. Is it the best? Is it perfect like an in-person? No. Do you get that networking? Not quite. But at that time, in that day and age, it was something. And people still really liked at least having that online live connection with somebody to chat with. And then, come around to 2023, we're like, okay, it's time to go back in person. And, where do we go that has space that we're familiar with? Because we got to make sure we keep stable in this deal from a financial standpoint, just so that we can even offer this opportunity. And so we went back to Columbia, South Carolina, because we knew the space. We knew it could hold what we're looking for. And then we also recorded all of our content after the fact. So we had live in person, and then we were able to offer kind of the virtual conference that was born out of the COVID pandemic. And so, and then 2024, we came back to Boise again. One of those things was familiar. We know it. We had to kind of regrow a little bit because our expectations going into 2021, if it wasn't for the pandemic, we were going to be in Denver. We were expecting 350 plus, just the way that we were growing. And then we had to kind of take it back a couple of steps and kind of, okay, let's level set that we were in 2019, 2020, and then let's regrow from there. And so we chose Columbia again from there, and again had 225 or so people. We went back to Boise this last year, similar number here. And now for this year, this year now, technically in 2025, we're going to Louisville, and we're expecting close to 300 people now. And like you mentioned, we just passed, the most active members we've ever had, to date. We are also passing the most registered people to date for the conference at this point in time leading up to it. So we're ahead of schedule that way. And so, it feels good to get where we're at, but it's also been a lot of kind of strategic thinking and processes and a lot of conversations in our board meetings, and maybe not even formal board meetings, and text messages of like, how do we do this to make sure we're getting what we need to get the value out to our members, but stay stable as an organization to continue offering what we're offering.
And a large part of that, I think, is, the networking, like Tim said. I mean, we looked at a lot of it. We also currently have a management agreement with the American Alliance of Orthopedic Executives. I'm a member of that. I'm involved in that association also. And it's a very interactive conference. There's great educational content, but great time for networking and building, not just with fellow professionals, but also with vendors. I think you take it a little bit different. we rely on our vendors not only for support of our organization, but support of our business operations. So I always tell my vendors that, we're business partners. If I win and benefit, you win and benefit. It's a working relationship. So I think that's it too. But just to teach those networking receptions, to put people there, because I'm an introvert, so I can easily go to a conference, sit in the back corner and not talk to anybody and be really happy because I didn't have to do it. But I have to like push myself to go out and be outgoing, which is people always say, but I'm a strong I on the Myers-Briggs. People say it's not true, but I'll take the test for you and you can see. But the networking is super huge. I mean, and I've said that throughout athletic training. I've never met an athletic trainer that I just couldn't call and ask a question to. If you meet someone somewhere, you can call. I mean, I know I can call JJ and ask a question about something anytime, and he'll answer. He'll either answer the phone call or call me back. And I saw some of this from, it goes back to some of it too. There's a conference called the Big Sky Sports Medicine Conference that Denny Miller, Jeff Monroe, and Randy Cohn have ran for years. And when Denny Miller was the president of the NATA way back in the day, I wrote him a letter, like legitimately on paper, and mailed it to him because Purdue was playing at Minnesota. And Denny's like, "Hey, why don't you come down and talk to me?" And me and another athletic trainer went down to the hotel where Purdue was staying, went up and talked to Denny in his hotel room on Friday night before a Saturday game. And just to see that, this was the president of the NATA, that he would, for one, acknowledge, he actually called me back. He didn't write me back, but there were long distance charges at that time. So you had to kind of watch that. So, but that, hey, we're interactive, and that's what we are as a profession. If we want to grow, networking is huge. I think it's just right at the top.
Yeah, the networking thing was probably the biggest thing that we all kind of agreed upon, and that was one of the biggest things we wanted to do as an organization when we had our conferences, especially in Boise. Like I remember the first thing like we talked about doing was a social. That we didn't start that in 20. We didn't start that in 2018. We didn't start that until we got to Columbia in 2020. But 2018 we had we joke about it as a board, but we had the potato bar for lunch, and we thought that was a really valuable thing to get people staying on site at the conference, sitting, talking, collaborating. And so we did that for 2018, 2019. We thought it was a joke. It was cheap at the time, and we thought it was a great initiative. And then by the time we got to 2020, we really came up. I give Mike a lot of credit for this, the idea of a social, and we did a very like outside of the conference. We went to a restaurant and rented out the whole place, and I remember we all kind of looked at each other like, "Oh my God, look at all the people that showed up." I mean, the place was packed and
Couldn't move.
could move. And at that point, we realized, hey, we might be onto something here. People actually really want the social aspect of things. In hindsight, COVID, we're all lucky we survived. But in 2021, when we talked about going virtual, we really struggled with that aspect. And we really wanted to try and create some collaborative experiences. So one of the things about being a small organization at the time is we could be kind of nimble and try and do things a little bit differently than other people had done before. And so we tried to do that. And especially with the software that we used and using Feedloop, we were very intentional about finding a way to make that work for us and allow those opportunities to sidebar and have conversations. And Feedloop was a great opportunity for us to do that. So 21 and 22 were really impactful for us, even just we had way more people attend because it was more accessible. And so we got our name out there a little bit more. And it was really we had no doubt when we were going to go back into person in 23 because we really needed that social aspect of things. And really for us, it was getting people a different, Mike's a manager, at the time, you know, Tim was a manager too, and I'm not. And so there are a lot of people like me trying to figure out, hey, how do I talk to those people? One, if I want to become one of those people, but also if I need to relay my story as an AT to advocate for something else, how do I do that? And Tim kind of mentioned it, talking about how do I talk to nursing leadership, or I've got this struggle. Those were really impactful conversations to be able to take in a group setting when you listen to a presentation, it's hard to bring up your own individual setting and say, hey, this is my specific problem. This is a me problem. How can I fix me problem? And you can do that as a sidebar. And we do that a lot at our conference, and it creates a lot of great conversation. But we also have kind of changed the model of how we do our presentations too. We try to have a little bit more collaborative peer-to-peer conversations about topics, and we try to be a little bit more collaborative in everything that we do, and building those relationships is really, really, really important. And so that's one of the biggest things we did from the beginning. And the other thing we really tried to do was find other organizations like AAOE, as Mike mentioned, working with the BOC, working with the KD, other organizations that are small like us, AATE, and those organizations that we've worked with over the years. We've really been trying to be collaborative with all of them to really not just help ourselves and the physician practice, but to help all ATs. And that's one of the biggest things we've done. Like I think in California, with some of the legislative efforts we've done there have been really impactful, in other states too. I think that's been really one of our biggest initiatives. When we first started talking about this, I remember we sat in Columbia at a strategic planning meeting. We were year 2.5 of the society, and we all talked about, hey, this is what we want to be when we grow up. And it was all pie in the sky stuff, but we're now year 7, 8 in this organization, and we've done a lot of the stuff that we didn't think we'd do until year 10 to 15. So it's been really kind of interesting to watch the growth over the years from the beginning, and where we've come from and where we still think we can go. I mean, we have 700 active members. I think if you would have told Mike, Tim, and the rest of us on the original founding board, hey, at this point you're going to have 700 active members, we would have laughed at you and said that's no way possible. I mean, the other number that's staggering is, over the lifetime of the society, we've had almost 1,200, 1,300 members. So it's not only that we have 700 activists, that we've had connection with almost 13 to 1,500 people
Sure.
over the lifetime of the society, which is really kind of cool. So to answer your question, I don't know how many are in the physician practice, but there's at least that many that have attended our conference.
I still find it semi-ironic that the introverted guy had the idea of the social too. I'm not sure if I'm buying the story that you're selling to us here. Uh,
It's beer.
It's beer, yeah.
Beer's the key.
I
Like
understand
recurring.
that one. I understand that one.
Beer is the key. But that's also something too. You look at it and how many are there, but also how many job opportunities are there out there? I mean, we're trying to hire. I'm guaranteeing you, St. Luke's is trying to hire. I mean, I know practices all over the country trying to find it, and that's part of it is that we went Marge, uh Joe Forrest and I spoke at AAOE, one time trying to, pitch to administrators to hire athletic trainers. And then a little bit of it, we got kind of beat up a couple years later when we went back to kind of give an update on this, because it's like, well, I hired an athletic trainer and they didn't help me at all. And then we realized, oh, well, we got to educate athletic trainers on how to work in this setting. You can't just
Yeah.
hire an athletic trainer, a new grad, and expect them to be able to know how to function in a physician practice setting, because it is a little bit different and unique. I mean, our educational standards as athletic trainers has advanced and improved. I think it's better, but we need to help get this niche information out there to make sure that we can have success. And it's, I say it, I wrote a paper about this to try to enhance the profession. I used to get 30 applicants when I would post a position. Now, I sit months and months with receiving no applicants for positions that we have, because there's so many opportunities as an athletic trainer. And that's one of the things for me is, I mean, when JJ referenced it, and I'm the only one who knew what he was saying, but it was a late night in Omaha last March, talking about, I mean, I'll do anything to help enhance and promote the profession of athletic training. I mean, that's just, it's one of my absolute core beliefs. I mean, I think athletic trainers have so much to offer in healthcare, so much to offer to our patients, so much to offer to clinics, and we can't promote that enough. But I created my own beast that I went out and told everybody how awesome this is, how it helps give a better work-life balance. There's still, it's not there. I mean, there's still stresses in it, any type of profession, and time constraints, but I think it's helped, it's advanced. I mean, our salaries are continuing to incline. Are they where I want them to be eventually? No. I mean, but they'll get there. But everybody wants everything to be instantaneous. I've been beating my head against the wall. That's why I have no hair since 1991. So, but we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep doing this. And that's it. The ability to openly speak your mind. We disagree about a lot of things, or our ways are not disagree about where we're trying to get, but how to get there. And I think we all get better because we listen to each other. We work together, we make compromises, and we get to solutions. I remember one of our board meetings, we celebrated when we had our first split vote.
Hmm.
Because I think it was 4 or 5 years in before we had our first non-unanimous board vote. Um, And so, it's kind of a cool thing because you shouldn't always. I mean, if we have 9 board members and 9 of us always agree on every item, there's 8 too many people in the room. We need to disagree. We need to have different viewpoints so that way we can advance. Otherwise, we have too much. You have too much group think, and I think our group has had a tremendous job of challenging each other.
What do you is the focus of the society outside of the conference? We talked about that, and again, go to the website of people listening and just look across the top. There's a career center, there's education, there's the publications. Trying to remember the other one off the top of my head. The membership, the different things. How do you keep that engagement so it's not 700 members with 300 showing up? Great conversion by overall, that's amazing, but there's the ones that are just not going to be able to make it happen for whatever reason. How does the value or the focus on the rest of the year, if you will?
So I'll start with part of it and then I'll hand it back to these guys. But some of it is advocacy. Like JJ said, it was reached out to us when California was doing their legislation because they had introduced their licensure and then there was a modification made that would have not allowed athletic trainers to work in a physician practice setting. It would have made it illegal basically, or our license wouldn't have been good. Well, that wasn't going to work very well. So, we contacted multiple physician clinics in California that utilize athletic trainers and said, hey, well, everybody you got's grandfathered in, but you never get to hire anybody new, which then helped get their advocacy going to contact their elected officials to say, hey, this is bad wording. And that was something because it would have negatively impacted the profession of athletic training in the state of California. So advocacy is one area that we do it. We also work very hard to go out and speak to other organizations, to give talks at AAOE, to promote athletic trainers to administrators, to go out and try, last year I went and talked to ASSM's board about athletic trainers in the Physician Practice Society. Right now we're working with them again on trying to help give a talk at their conference. So we're also trying to go out there and not just educate our people, but educate others that hire us. But if somebody else want to talk about year-round education, other opportunities or things we're working on.
I want to add on to the advocacy thing too. Is one of the things we've done more recently is partnering with other specialty societies and some of the legislative efforts. I remember last year we had one of them come to us and say, hey, we have this issue specifically with this bill that's coming up. Would you guys mind looking at it and providing comment? And I think that was one of the aha moments for me, is being able to see other organizations, the other specialty practices of athletic training looking for help where we used to be in some of these things. So I think finding those very specific niche things that, like, the bigger organizations may not see all the little minutia of how they're wanting to get something done, which is I 100% applaud of trying to get all these advocacy things done, but sometimes the little minutia things get lost, and that's where those of us that are on boots on the ground doing it can see, like, hey, that's going to be a problem. And once you bring up those issues, everybody's like, oh, had no idea, thanks for bringing it up. And so I think that was one of the big things for me on the advocacy front, that I was really really shocked that we were there already as an organization. We always talked about doing that, Mike. That was one of Mike's biggest things, was advocacy. Education was the first one, but advocacy was the second one. And to see us already get there was I really enjoy that, and love that we're getting there.
Yeah, to add on to the California one, we also had one for Pennsylvania in their
Hmm.
state membership group, and their president is a member of ATPPS, and they reached out to us when they were going through their legislative session earlier this year, and asking for a letter of support for what was going through, and we're like, yeah, like how can we help? We don't know if this will be a determining factor, but absolutely. And so yeah, we sent a letter in support of the work that was being done on ATPPS letterhead, and as official can be, and it went through. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we were a factor in it, but we were able to help somebody who asked for help. And again, like JJ said, we used to be the people asking for help, and now we're able to
Hmm.
return some of that. The other organizations we partner with, like AATE, the Performing Arts Society, Industrial Society, all these other smaller groups that have come up in the last 5-6 years, are a couple of years behind us in their development and their progression. And last year we were able to secure like space in our conference center that we weren't quite using, but we had as part of our package, and say, hey, why don't you guys use that so that it's lower cost for you to have your in-person, conference. And so we our first 3 years, we were at a situation based upon where our board members lived and worked specifically to use space for our conference. So it was able to for us to give back in a similar fashion. And so, we've got now AWATE this next year coming in. Performing Arts is also going to hold a session. Industrial and our military groups are going to have representation to at least kind of see how we're doing it. We're going to share kind of keynote speakers. So rather than having everything separate, we can combine on certain topics that everybody can benefit from. And so, kind of be a shared space that way where and then when we talk about industry support that's happening, you've got different groups that have different interests based upon what society is there, but they kind of have access to all three groups. And so it provides more value to the different vendors and industry partners that are who value the ATs and AT profession, who help their business at the same time. And so, we're looking to grow. I don't know how long that will be, because I could see WATE outgrowing the space that we can provide in the future, which is a good problem to have. And then they will go on and potentially do it at their own place. Who knows? But we're there supporting other ATs who need support, and we're glad and lucky to even be able to do that. And so, and because we can, we want to. So it's been a good partnership that way. And it's continuing to evolve year by year, and we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, and the collaboration piece of things is really one of the biggest things that we wanted to do that. We were very intentional about doing that. And when you kind of ask the question, what are the other things we do besides education? That's one of the things I think we really, really try to do, and we've been very intentional and very strategic about. I remember our very first strategic board meeting, just planning session. We wrote down organizations that we wanted to say, hey, we want to partner with these organizations. And some said, hey, yeah, let's do it. And then some said, no, let's not. And that's great. And we've even had organizations approach us that we didn't expect. And they've been great in those things. And the more collaborative we've been able to be with those things, it's kind of helped us on a multifaceted front, between education and advocacy. And we both knew that we needed other people outside of our little bubble that could help educate us. And so being able to partner with WATE around education, ways we can educate better, and how we can collaborate with education programs to promote the profession, promote the setting, and the society has been really helpful. And then, some of the crossover education that we're planning to have with performing arts, industrial, there's a lot of crossover. We didn't realize as we were starting to talk to their board, there's an amazing amount of crossover with industrial and public safety, that we should be collaborating a little bit more in education with them. And our board, some of our members, we didn't realize live in both worlds. And so being able to find that education was really helpful. And so those collaborative efforts have been really, really intentional. And our first 3 years, 4 years, really the focus was on the conference, because we knew that was the main reason we started the society, is around education. And then after we got past COVID, and realized, hey, okay, now we've kind of got our feet back underneath us. What are those things we originally said we wanted to do? Because there were a lot of things were planning to do before COVID shut us down. And one of those things was year-round education, and being able to provide education to those when they can access it, that kind of asynchronous model. And we're getting back to doing that, and really been successful through. Really, our work with the athletic training residencies has been helpful, given that most of them kind of live in this specialty physician practice space, and most of them are based in orthopedics. Our practice, the society is not all about orthopedics; it's about all physician practice, and that's one of the things we've also seen with the attendance of our conferences. The people work in rheumatology and primary care and oncology, and that's one of the things that's really been surprising for all of us is, where athletic trainers are kind of spread and grown. And so being able to provide education to them about things we can do as ATs. And so through the residencies, we've been able to do a year-round education. We've done that since COVID. Really, that came out of COVID as well. And we've kind of expanded it this year to include not just the residencies, but to have a monthly or every other month education that's free to members, that is continuing ed. That's one of the member benefits, is you get these continuing ed opportunities. They're going to be asynchronous. They used to be live in person, and we realized that that was not always the best way for people to obtain the information. So by making it asynchronous, we're going to do that and make it a little bit better for people to access around those topics. We're also trying to create some ideas around these other tasks or things that we as ATs are asked to do. And the first one we came up with was DME and DME coordination. And there's a lot of ATs that do that nationally. And so we're actually creating kind of a certificate course. And that came out of a collaboration with one of our, or a couple of our industry sponsors actually over the years, and their relationships with us and saying, hey, we have so many ATs that want to get into this or do it on the side or part of the organization. How can we make this better and get the information to the right people at the right time? And so that's a organizational goal that we've created, and so we're going to be rolling that out here hopefully by the end of the month, that it will open, and it'll be kind of a year-long asynchronous but also in-person portion of this DME certification to basically teach someone how to be a DME coordinator, the business aspect of things, then also the in-person fitting aspect of things, product kind of trial, all of those things. And those are all things we talked, Mike, I remember you and I talked about this when we were sitting in Wheeling, Illinois at GLADA talking about these DME things. And that was 12 years ago. And to finally be able to put something like this to fruition after long kind of conversations, we're really excited about that. We've even talked about ways that we can help around specialty practice and the new specialty certification that the BOC has created for orthopedic specialists. And how do we, because a lot of our members are in that specialty practice, and how do we, and a lot of members want to take that certification. How do we best prepare them for that? And so being able to provide specialty education is another thing that we've been doing and been very intentional from the beginning. And our partnership with the BOC has really helped us with that. And a lot of our board members being aligned with that, with the BOC, and working with the BOC has helped with that as well. So that's one of the things around it is centered around education, but providing education in varied ways is one of the things we've been really intentional about. A lot of lab. That's one of the other things we try to do at our in-person conference. Another reason we want to get back to in-person is the hands-on lab aspect of things. Yeah, you can sit in a conference and learn things, but we really want to try and get a suturing lab where you're actually doing hands-on stuff, phlebotomy lab, though, skill add things that we wanted to do. An OR lab is another one we've done. The DME lab is another thing. So I think that's one of the big things that makes us a little bit unique in our educational offerings is, yeah, we try and do more stuff around growth of practice, but also skill acquisition is one of the biggest things. And one of the things I'm really proud that we do around a skill acquisition standpoint is that soft skill kind of stuff that we all kind of talk about, but no one really knows how to define it. And leadership aspect, personal growth aspect, we've been really intentional about that from the beginning. We've always had some sort of leadership aspect of our conference. And this past year, we actually had an entire kind of leadership track that was around that. We brought in guest speakers to talk about it that aren't ATs, which I think is great to get, not just us that are talking about it and doing it. We had some of that. We definitely had people like Mike sitting on a round table, people like Aaron Hajar, who's in the C-suite as well, kind of really talking about how they got into leadership and how their skills as an AT have made them successful, but also how can you grow yourself to get to where they are. And I think that's one of the cool things that we've been really intentional about in our offerings and collaboration with other people and getting that education out there.
Awesome. Covered a lot. I now feel no, I feel like I've got a full-fledged understanding of kind of where it's gone, or where it's been and where it's at and where it's going. Anything else you guys wanted to cover before we kind of jump into a modified version of the AT chat questions?
I would just add to what JJ was talking about, the DME course. So, that goes live on January 15th, for the asynchronous webinars that we put together with our industry support. And at the conference, we have a lab that coincides with the certificate course. So anybody can take the lab. You don't have to necessarily be in a certificate course, but if you take the course, to get the certificate, those go together basically.
Sure.
And so for the, whether you're at this conference or maybe 2026 conference, and maybe you start the asynchronous learning after the conference, you can always come back and do that. And it's just putting those two parts together where you got to learn, but you also got to put your hands on and talk through it and have a better understanding of actually the business of DME.
I like it.
And we really do listen to our attendees and our members. Every time someone comes to our conference, we always send them the survey afterwards. What do you want to what do you want to see or what is missing from this conference? And we're very intentional about reading those comments and adding the things that we people want to hear about. Like AI was one of the ones that we heard 2 years
Sure.
ago, and we had a ton of AI stuff last year. I learned a ton on AI. New products like this year, we're having a lab around 3D cast printing that specifically came out of, some of those comments. So I think that's the other thing too, is we still are small enough that we can be here and listen and we're trying to be on the cutting edge and catch things right as their early development, not when they're 3 years past and we're already on to the next phase of things when we start to educate people about them. So that's part of the reason we're trying to get back to that the asynchronous all year round learning, because then we can be a little bit more nimble and jump some of these things into education, not just around having to wait a year until we get to the next conference. So that's one of the other things we really, really strive to be better at as we continue to grow as an organization. And those of us who are original board members are rolling off and new board members are coming on.
I like it, and I think that's extremely important. And everything moves too fast to not to be able to try and do that.
Hmm.
Well, first question, and we'll modify just a little bit, and we'll just go Tim, Mike, JJ on it. Is where do you see athletic training going in the next 5 to 10 years? And it can definitely be specific to the physician setting, or generally, if you like. Your call.
Um, like Mike said, the demand for ATs is a lot higher than our current supply. And so we have to focus more on continued education and expansion of that education for those who are interested in this setting specifically. Whether that be through residencies, there's fellowships popping up, which we can have a whole conversation on what the difference is between those two. Our focus certificates, so the DME series and certificate we're putting together. If you're interested in getting into kind of the DME business or enhancing your current position to do so, this now provides some validity to like what you're doing. I think we're in talks of like how can we do something similar with the surgical aspect? Again, by institution and state practice act, that's going to impact you on what you can and can't do. But there's a foundation of how do you position the patient? How do you sterilely drape a patient? And all of the things that go into a case if you're going to go that route or are currently in that route. So we have to offer the education that people are wanting for and needing. And so when those who do come into the workforce and you are hiring for these positions in the physician practice setting, they are more prepared, like Mike was mentioning, right? They aren't just, quote, off the street or fresh out of school, because that's not a fair title to put on them. But there are very specific insights to this setting that will make you more successful if you're better prepared.
I see the athletic training field as a tremendous opportunity. Like we said, you can work almost anywhere right now. I mean, you can pick your state for sure. You can almost pick your region. So you can pick what kind of lifestyle. I mean, if you say, I got to be in the mountains and I want to ski, you can find a job in the mountains where you can ski. You can do things like that. So tremendous opportunity. I see it's limited by the ability of the athletic trainer to see how they can improve healthcare. Because you can find a role, show me how you can improve something, and you can modify it. I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think
I like the optimism on that one. Not always the case around the profession, so it's nice to hear it.
I mean, I want to elaborate, go even higher with Mike. I think the sky is the limit. I think what we as ATs, one of the strong suits is we've always had to advocate for ourselves and where we belong and we should belong. And with healthcare being what it is, and there are tremendous shortages around the country, workforce depletion, adaptation, modification, I think ATs are so used to that. And I think we just need to be able to advocate our way into any space we want to get into. And for me, what is an AT and how do we fit? I think we're a healthcare provider. And I think at the that's where we need to stop. We're a healthcare provider. And being able to find the way to advocate that the right way to the leadership that we need to say and be kind of more of a yes, I can do that within reason, but also finding the skills. We're all pretty good at educating ourselves and adapting as we need to. I mean, I feel like the AT credo should be we're MacGyver, and we've always done that. And so, how do we fit our little Swiss Army knife into those little settings? So, in 5 to 10 years, I mean, gosh, 5 to 10 years ago, I didn't ever think we'd have ATs in rheumatology or in oncology, and we do now. I mean, we have ATs in trauma, in the ED. Those are areas that none of us would have seen 5 to 10 years ago, and where that can be in the future, we don't know. I mean, COVID showed us there were ATs doing all kinds of things during COVID because we were a healthcare provider, and we need to remind ourselves that we can do that with the right, right ad hoc training and the right competency growth and skill development. We can do all of those things. So for me, in 5 to 10 years, I hope we're doing something that I won't even be able to think of right now. And I truly think that that's probably where we'll be. And I think the more, especially as we get more matriculation of ATs into leadership roles, that know the value of what ATs can do, I think we'll get more of that. And as long as we can all think outside of ourselves, like, oh, I wasn't able to do that, you shouldn't be able to do that. It should be more of like, we can do this together and we can all grow together. Just because you didn't do it then or you don't do it now doesn't mean you can't do it in the future, obviously within reason. But I think we have to have more of that mindset.
Sorry, my motion detector was going to turn my lights off on me. That's why. That's
So
why I
is
was
that what the
waving.
arm raise was?
That's what the waving is for. But to say it to JJ, like I said, some of it is like I said, I agree. There's sometimes some people are really not very optimistic, and it frustrates me a little bit. Yes, we're in some settings where it's challenging. I mean, it's not like administration hours are short. Trust me. I'm usually usually the surgeon that's operating that day is the only person that beats me into the office if somebody beats me in, and I'm usually the last person to leave the office. So it's not like my hours are short. It's not like it's not. And I also oversee emergency room physicians. And if you work with emergency room physicians, there's no difference in the day of the week or the time of the day because they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's not there. But, I think we've made tremendous salary gains. Like I said before, I don't think we're done, but be opportunistic. I mean, that's the biggest thing. There's so much opportunity. Show your value. I always tell people a super, really simple thing when people say I deserve more money, say, show me that you make me triple what you make. So if you want to make $100,000, show me how you make my organization $300,000. Why do I use triple? Because you have to cover your benefits. Plus, I have to pay for the bricks and mortar and have to cover my utilities. So that's easily double your salary for me, even just to have you on my payroll. Then on top of that, if you actually want to make me money, that's why you need to get to triple. If you're making more than triple the money that you're costing, then it's really hard for somebody in administration to say you don't deserve more money. It's really hard.
we we may have ventured into this question a little bit, which is perfect. But just to kind of give everybody the chance to end, if there was one thing you could change within, with just the snap of your fingers around ATs in the physician practice, what would that be?
It's going to be cliche, but you can't be afraid to fail. That's something that I've just learned myself in my own mindset. Is that especially coming into the setting, we have the foundation to be successful, but there's so much of this setting and area you're working that we don't know. So you have to be, you got to know that you don't know things. And so you got to be open to learning. You got to be open to failing, which then creates the learning. And it's just this cycle that goes on and goes forth. And usually failing then opens up other doors that can then help you in the future. You meet other people, you get new opportunities, and it's kind of this progressive effect by being okay with failing to some degree.
If I could snap my finger that CMS recognizes us as healthcare providers. I mean, if
Love
that
it.
happens, if we were recognized as healthcare providers, we could direct frontline bill. We wouldn't have to backdoor so much of the stuff we do. I spend a lot of my time designing backdoor ways for athletic trainers to be utilized at the top of their license. CMS recognition would be the snap of the finger.
I like it.
I think to get out of our own way, I think there are a lot of ATs that are roadblocks. And I think we need to learn how to push the buttons a little bit more. And to Tim's point, first attempt in learning, that's what failure, that's what it is to fail. And there's going to be times where you are told no and try again. And there's plenty of, we wouldn't all be where we are if we had taken the first no. And a lot of times that first no can even be from other ATs. I know Tim's very aware of, we've been part of organizations that have said no, and within organizations that have stopped the growth of ATs in the physician practice because they were like, no, you can't do that. And well, why can't I? It's within my scope of practice. It's within my licensure, those kind of things. So sometimes that's our biggest roadblocks are ourselves. And if we can get out of our own way, I think the sky again is the opportunity. And I think we can get to all those things, exactly what Mike talked about. I think we can. But we have to be able to get out of our own way to let ourselves advocate for that.
Last one as we kind of wrap up. What does being an AT mean to you? And then if people wanted to reach out or connect with you, what would follow you, whatever it may be, what would be the best place to do so?
Oh, this is a loaded question. It could be its own episode.
Yeah, why we
But
ask it.
I think being an AT in terms of is utilizing your education experiences to do what's fulfilling to you. Like my progression is not what I expected, but my foundation has got me to where I'm at now. And so staying true to kind of those AT roots, even if you aren't actively seeing patients like you once were, if you're doing work that impacts patients positively and the healthcare of others around you positively, you're still an AT.
And where can people follow you, reach out?
I mean, I'm available on Instagram, Facebook, what have you. You can just search my name for the most part. But yeah, LinkedIn as well.
What did athletic training mean? It's to me, I mean, I miss that. What I tell people is I miss patient care. I miss the rapport with my patients all the time. It's one of the harder things for me about being an administrator. I said most likely when I can call it quits from being an administrator, I would like to go back I'd like to go back to the field. I'd like to go back to the athletic training room. For some of it was some of the happiest. Not that I'm not happy, but it was very happy to. I loved the patient interaction. It still beat it to me. I signed my name on everything still with ATC behind my name. I'm extremely proud of it. I you know I always didn't like when people said I'm just an athletic trainer. I mean, I am really proud to be an athletic trainer, and like I said, I will fight for the profession for forever for it. So it's who I am. It's how I became what I am. Just like Tim said too. For me, I mean, you can find all of us on the ATPPS website. It has our email addresses on there. But on LinkedIn's probably the easiest way for me. I'm not a big I do stalk a few people on Facebook or Instagram. I look at Tim's cool boards that chopping block boards for his side hustle or other things. But LinkedIn's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. But if you find me, I will call you back. I will return messages.
Awesome. And
Yeah,
JJ?
I think, Tim and Mike kind of hit it on the head for me. Like we're healthcare providers first and foremost, even if we're not seeing patients. We're affecting the healthcare of everybody we do, everything we take care of. I mean, Mike affects more patients' care than I'll ever will because he changes things for multiple providers at the same time, and so he's affecting thousands of patients' care where I only get the people that walk in the door. And so I think at the forefront of what we are is we deliver patient care, and we do it at the highest quality. And I think patients first has always been our motto. I think that's why we all crave that personal interaction of working sidelines or in the training room. That's what we're built on and grown on. And so even when we leave the individual patient care and we go into leadership, or in Tim's world, he's kind of more on the tertiary aspect of patient care. It's still affecting patient care. And I think that's what we've got to remember. That's what we do at best. And at our core, everything is patient first. And I don't know that this is no slight against other healthcare professionals. I don't know that others training does that all the time. And I think we always are patient first. And I think that's what we've got to remember for us always, no matter where we are in the setting or what we're doing. If you've got the ATC behind your name, that's what that means.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's what it always has meant to me. It's taken me years to kind of really understand and put it to words. But that's really what at our core, what I think we are. And I think if you talk to those of us that are even, I mean, those of us that work full time at like the BOC or at the Katie, that's what they're doing.
Mhm.
They're affecting patient care and how, people are trained or how people are credentialed, making sure the right people are getting credentialed, those kind of things.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to say it. Y- as athletic trainers, people love to pigeonhole us. And I always say athletic training It's not who we treat, it's how we treat them. And
I like that.
it's we treat them, and we're all because athletic trainers, I do not ever see athletic trainers wanting to be standalone. We are the end all be all providers. Athletic trainers are always part of a healthcare team. We're a healthcare provider as part of the healthcare team. We want to get you into the right person, work with the right person to get the optimal results. It's not who we treat, it's how we treat them. We treat them as a team player.
Yeah, the team aspect thing is, again, something that's baseline in our training. We've always done that, always have. The idea of collaborative team care was, we never were able to put fancy words on it, but that's what we'd always done as ATs. And I think we've got to remember that and be a little bit more stronger advocates that we are part of that team, and everybody's a part of that team. We're all equal parts, and we all bring our individual skill sets. So yeah, that's what I think an AT is.
And where can people connect with you, JJ?
Email's probably the best way.
Okay.
LinkedIn is good too. I'm not as active on there as I used to be. Tim's way more active nowadays than I ever was. But yeah, LinkedIn's good. But yeah, my email is probably the best way. ATPPS email.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
All right. And then Tim, for the final pitch, since this was kind of geared towards promoting A, the society, but B, the annual meeting, if people wanted to check it out, where can they go? What does it look like? I'll let you have the final word on that.
Yeah. You can start with our website at atpps.org. Our 2025 annual conference is going to be held in Louisville, Kentucky at the Hyatt Regency on February 20th, 21st, and 22nd. It's about the same time of year every year as well. We're looking forward to it, especially the networking session that Mike talked about and has continued to evolve. It really gets everyone an opportunity to be around each other, low pressure, and really kind of develop relationships that maybe you wouldn't have that will grow into the future for you.
Oh, you gotta promote the theme of the networking conference, the networking session. What's our
Oh,
social?
Howl at the Moon?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, Howl at the Moon. We're going to have some dueling pianos.
There you go.
Last year we did a casino night, which was a big hit. So we're like, how do we kind of shift it a little bit? So everyone will get a little liquid courage if they would like it, and maybe everyone will start howling, or maybe they shouldn't be howling, but everyone will be howling to a point, and we'll see how it goes. It should be a raucous good time.
Yeah, like I said, social is something we talk a ton about, and we're really intentional about it. So like we've done different themes over the years. This year the Howl at the Moon, we talked about doing, like, since we're in Kentucky, we talked about doing horse racing or like bringing someone on site to do that. We couldn't do that, so we did Howl at the Moon. Last year the casino night was a huge hit. People loved that. We had I'm forgetting our musician that we had come in Columbia. He was fantastic.
Dan Bull.
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was great. So since coming back from COVID, that's one of the things we've been trying to do too, is figure out new ways to get people to be collaborative, because there's not always, it's not always about having a beer and talking. So people just don't like that. The casino night was a huge hit for those people. And that I'm interested to see how at the Moon, there are a ton of people that have been asking for that one.
And I think Tony can attest to, you don't need to drink.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Tony's the perfect example. He's the one I always use.
Having been to that Howl at the Moon for a different reason, for a different event, it is quality. It is a really cool area in Louisville. So I will. It's a good time. The whole place is a good time. So, well, thank you all for taking the time and just kind of sharing everything about ATPPS, and look forward to having the follow-up episodes. Tim will be connecting with you on that, and we'll take it from there. So thank you again.
Thank you, Joel.
Thanks for having us, Will.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Athletic Training Chat. We really hope you got a ton out of this episode. And if you're interested in this conference, or really if you work in the physician practice or just curious about it, check out the ATPPS. They have a wealth of information as was shared in this. And just, again, a really awesome story about how they found a need, figured it out, a lot of conversations, but truly are making a difference for athletic trainers in this field. Again, if you're interested in their conference coming up in Louisville near the end of February, highly recommend that. Along with Louisville just being a great city. I did not get to check out Churchill Downs, but did check out the Louisville Slugger Museum and tour, which was pretty awesome. So check that out. Thank you again for listening. If you're interested in journaling, check out the Athletic Training Daily Journal. Free 14-day trial at clinicallypress.org/shop, or find it on Amazon. Amazon. We also have a special at the clinicalpress.org. Full thing, shipping tax included for $15 compared to $20 on Amazon. Check that out while supplies last. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you at the next episode.